Welcome to our deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're going to be tackling decision-making,
Okay.
but not just any decision-making.
Right.
We're looking at it through the lens of uncertainty,
Okay.
taking inspiration from Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets.
Interesting.
Now get this.
Okay.
She uses poker as a model for understanding how we make choices in life.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's an interesting comparison for sure.
It is. So,
Yeah.
she argues that life, just like poker,
Okay.
is filled with incomplete information,
Right.
hidden variables,
Uh-huh.
and a hefty dose of luck.
Yeah. You can't escape that luck factor.
No, you can't.
It's everywhere.
So we're constantly making bets,
We are,
whether we realize it or not.
whether we acknowledge it or not.
Right.
That's a key point.
Now, she kicks off the book with a pretty intense example.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that infamous Super Bowl play call?
Oh, are we talking about the Seahawks?
Yeah.
1 yard away from victory, and they choose to pass instead of running with Marshawn Lynch.
Exactly.
Oh, that was rough.
I know.
So much second guessing after that.
I bet.
Yeah, it was a tough one for sure.
And as we all know,
Yeah.
that decision resulted in an interception.
Ugh, I can still picture it.
I know.
Heartbreaking for Seattle.
A heartbreaking loss.
Definitely.
And Duke uses this example to illustrate what she calls resulting.
Resulting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So resulting is the tendency to judge the quality of a decision
Right.
solely based on the outcome.
Just on how it turned out,
Yeah.
regardless of the reasoning behind it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So everyone was quick to label that play call as the worst in Super Bowl history
Right.
because it failed.
Because it didn't work out the way they hoped.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what if the pass had been complete for a touchdown?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Would we be praising the coach's genius?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
We'd be calling it a brilliant gamble.
A stroke of genius.
Yeah, that's the danger of this resulting thing, isn't it?
It is.
We let the outcome color our perception of the decision itself.
Totally.
Even if it was a sound decision based on the information they had at the time.
Exactly.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
Yeah.
So even brilliant coaches
Yeah,
with years of experience and expertise
you're right.
can make decisions that backfire.
They can, and they do.
So how does Duke suggest we move beyond this outcome bias?
Well, she suggests we shift our focus
Okay.
from the outcome to the process.
So instead of asking, was this a good or bad decision?
Right.
We should be asking,
We should be asking.
this a good or bad process?
That's a much better question, I think.
Right.
Gets to the heart of it.
So it's not about being right or wrong all the time,
No.
but about developing a system for making decisions.
Right.
That increases our chances of success over the long run.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
It's about the long game.
So this is where the poker analogy comes
Okay.
in handy.
How so?
Because in poker,
Yeah.
just like in life,
Uh-huh.
you can't control the cards you're dealt.
Nope.
You can't predict with certainty what your opponents will do,
Never know what they're holding.
but you can control how you play your hand.
That's where the skill comes in.
Exactly.
Making the most of what you've got.
So it's about focusing on what we can control,
Right.
gathering information,
Uh-huh.
assessing probabilities,
Okay.
weighing those potential risks and rewards,
Weighing the odds.
and then making the best possible bet
Right.
based on the available data.
Based on the information you have, it's
Right.
a calculated risk.
And importantly,
Okay.
accepting that sometimes,
Mhm.
even when you make the right decision,
Yeah.
based on all the information available,
You've done your due diligence.
luck can still intervene
Right.
and lead to a negative outcome.
Luck can be a fickle mistress.
That must be a tough pill to swallow,
It is, especially when the stakes are high.
especially when the stakes are high.
Yeah, no one likes to lose.
No.
But Dupe argues that by accepting this inherent uncertainty,
Okay.
we can free ourselves from the tyranny of resulting.
So instead of beating ourselves up
Right.
over every loss,
Yeah, dwelling on the what ifs.
we can focus on learning from our experiences.
Learning from both the good and the bad,
Exactly.
and using that to refine our decision-making process.
Over time.
Over time.
So how do we start thinking more like poker players?
Well, for starters,
Okay.
Duke encourages us to embrace the idea that we're betting all the time.
Betting all the time.
Yeah.
Like constantly.
Constantly. Every decision, whether it's choosing a career path,
Okay.
investing in a stock,
Yeah.
or even just deciding what to eat for dinner.
So even choosing between pizza and salad
Oh, yeah.
is a bet.
Absolutely.
What am I betting on in that scenario?
You're betting on your beliefs about taste, nutrition,
Uh-huh.
the long-term effects of your dietary choices.
Wow,
Yeah.
when you put it that way.
Right.
It really highlights how every choice we make
It does.
carries a certain level of risk and reward.
There's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
Every decision has potential consequences.
So Duke argues that becoming more conscious of these bets,
Right.
acknowledging the uncertainties involved, and weighing the potential upsides and downsides
That's key.
can lead to more informed and deliberate decision-making.
Absolutely. It's about making conscious choices.
Now, you mentioned this really interesting anecdote
Oh, yeah.
about a famous poker player,
Okay.
John Hennigan.
I know John Hennigan.
Yeah, so he made a bet that he could live in Des Moines, Iowa
Des Moines.
for a month.
What?
Yeah,
That seems a little crazy.
it does seem crazy on the surface.
Right.
This high-stakes poker pro,
Used to the Vegas life.
used to the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas,
Exactly.
opting for a month of Midwestern life.
It's quite a contrast.
So what was the thought process behind that bet?
Well, Duke uses this example to illustrate that even seemingly irrational bets
Okay.
can be quite rational when you break it down.
Okay.
So you think about the underlying beliefs and calculations.
Okay.
He likely weighed the potential downsides.
It's like being away from the high-stakes poker scene,
Yeah, exactly.
the change of environment,
Right, being out of his element.
against the potential upsides,
Okay.
like the challenge,
Yeah.
the publicity,
Right. He's a high-profile guy.
maybe improving his golf game away from all the distractions.
It could be a good opportunity to focus.
And he decided the bet was worth taking.
Interesting.
So it's a great example
Yeah.
of how someone is thinking in bets,
Uh-huh.
even in situations that seem far removed from the poker table.
It's a mindset,
Yeah.
thinking about the potential outcomes,
Okay.
weighing the risks and reward.
Now think about how this applies to your own life.
Okay.
Every time you accept a job offer,
Right.
you're betting that this company and this role
Yeah.
will be a good fit for you,
That it aligns with your goals.
that it aligns with your long-term career goals.
Right.
When you choose to exercise,
Okay.
you're betting on the belief that the health benefits
Right.
outweigh the time and effort involved.
That's a good way to look at it.
Okay, that's starting to click for me.
Good.
So if we're constantly making these bets
Right.
based on our beliefs,
Yeah.
how do we ensure that our beliefs are accurate and reliable?
That's the million-dollar question.
Are we even good at forming and updating our beliefs?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky.
Okay.
Duke argues that we are, in fact, pretty bad at it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not a skill that comes naturally to us.
So our brains are wired to readily accept information as true
Right.
without much
We
scrutiny.
tend to believe what we hear and see.
It's like we're on autopilot,
Sort of.
absorbing information without really critically evaluating it.
We don't always stop to question things.
And she uses the example of the low-fat diet craze
Oh, yeah.
that persisted for years,
For years.
despite mounting evidence that it wasn't as beneficial for health
It shows how ingrained these beliefs can become.
as initially believed.
Right, even when evidence contradicts them.
So even when the facts are staring us in the face,
Uh-huh.
we sometimes choose to ignore them
We do.
if they challenge our pre-existing notions.
It's uncomfortable to change our minds. We like to stick with what we know.
So this is where the concept of motivated reasoning comes in.
Motivated reasoning.
Yeah. So it's this powerful tendency to protect our beliefs,
To hold on to what we think is true.
our identity,
Yeah, our sense of self.
even in the face of contradictory evidence.
We filter information to fit our narrative.
We interpret information in a way that confirms what we already believe.
Right. Even if it means distorting the facts.
So we build these walls around our beliefs,
Metaphorical walls.
and anything that threatens to knock them down is met with resistance.
We get defensive.
But why are we so resistant to changing our minds?
Well, changing our minds can feel like admitting we were wrong.
And that can be tough.
It can be a blow to our egos.
And plus, in a world of information overload,
Right.
it's easier to stick with what we already
Well,
believe.
it's overwhelming to constantly reevaluate
We
everything.
have to constantly reevaluate everything.
Yeah, it's mentally exhausting.
And haven't things gotten even worse with the rise of social media?
Oh, absolutely.
We curate our feeds
We
to
do.
reinforce our existing views.
We create echo chambers.
So social media creates these filter bubbles
Right.
that expose us only to information that aligns with our existing beliefs.
Well, we're not getting the full picture.
It makes it even harder to be exposed to diverse viewpoints
And to challenge our own assumptions.
and to update our beliefs based on new information.
It's a real problem.
It's like we're trapped in echo chambers,
Yeah.
reinforcing our own
It's a
biases.
self-perpetuating cycle.
So even if we recognize that we have these biases,
Right.
it seems incredibly difficult to break free from them.
It takes conscious effort
Yeah.
to seek out different perspectives,
To question our
to
assumptions.
be open to being wrong.
But it seems like some people would be better equipped to handle this than others.
Okay.
Surely intelligent people are better at filtering information
You would think so, right?
and making rational decisions.
It seems logical.
Right. I mean, they're intelligent.
But research suggests otherwise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, intelligence doesn't necessarily protect us from bad decisions.
Wow, that's a bit of a mind bender.
It is.
So if intelligence isn't the answer,
Yeah.
what is?
Well, research shows that even highly intelligent people,
Okay.
they tend to interpret information in a way
Yeah.
that confirms their pre-existing beliefs.
So even when faced with objective data,
Yeah.
our pre-existing beliefs can act like a filter
They can distort our perception.
and leading us to see what we want to see.
Exactly.
If intelligence can't save us,
Uh-huh.
is there any hope for us to overcome these biases
There is.
and become better decision makers?
Absolutely. There's always hope.
Okay, tell me more.
Duke suggests a powerful tool.
Okay.
She calls it the wanna bet approach.
Want to bet?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Okay, so imagine you're in a heated discussion.
Uh-huh.
Someone makes a bold statement,
Okay.
and you feel that familiar urge to dig in
Yeah.
and defend your own
I
position.
know that feeling.
Instead of doing that,
Yeah.
Duke suggests simply asking,
Asking what?
wanna bet?
Want to bet?
Yeah.
I could see how that would instantly change the
Well,
dynamic.
it shifts the tone.
Instead of an emotional back and forth,
Right.
it forces a more analytical and critical approach.
It makes you think twice
Yeah.
about your position.
So that simple question
Yeah.
forces both parties to confront the uncertainty
Right.
inherent in their beliefs.
It injects a dose of reality.
It makes you ask yourself,
It does.
am I so sure of my position that I'm willing to put something on the line?
It's a good test of conviction.
Even if we're not literally making a wager, just asking ourselves that question
Yeah.
can be a powerful way to refine our thinking
It can help us avoid blind spots.
and make better decisions.
That's the goal.
So instead of clinging to our beliefs,
Right.
we're encouraged to test them,
To see if they hold up.
to see if they hold up under scrutiny.
That's how we learn and grow.
That's a pretty radical shift in mindset,
It is.
but it seems incredibly valuable
It is.
in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information and opinions.
We need all the help we can get.
So we've established that life is full of uncertainty.
Yes.
We're constantly making bets,
We are.
and we're often pretty bad at it.
It's a learning process.
But how do we get better at learning from our experiences,
Okay.
both good and bad?
That's a great question.
How do we avoid repeating the same mistakes?
That's where things get even trickier.
Okay.
Duke argues that we're not always good at extracting the right lessons from our outcomes.
Because of the interplay of luck and skill.
Exactly.
So even if we succeed, it doesn't automatically mean we made a great decision.
Right.
And conversely,
Mm-hmm.
if we fail,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't automatically mean we made a terrible decision.
That's right.
So how do we disentangle luck and skill
That's a tough one.
to gain more accurate insights from our experiences?
That's a great question.
I'm guessing that's where we'll pick things up in part 2.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dives into thinking in bets,
Back for more.
where we're exploring how to make better decisions
In a world full of uncertainty,
in a world full of uncertainty
that's the key.
and how to learn from our experiences,
Yeah.
even when luck plays a role,
Which it always does.
which it always does.
Always.
We left off talking about the tricky task
Okay.
of separating luck from skill
Right.
when evaluating our past decisions.
It can be hard to untangle those two.
It seems like our brains are wired to take credit for the wins
Oh, yeah.
and blame external factors for the losses.
We love to take credit when things go well,
We do.
and we're quick to point fingers when they don't.
And Duke refers to that as
What's that called?
self-serving bias.
Ah, self-serving bias.
Yeah,
Makes light.
it's that tendency to attribute our successes to our amazing skill
To our
and
brilliant.
brilliance
Right.
while conveniently blaming our failures on bad luck
Or circumstances beyond our control.
or external factors beyond our control.
It's always someone else's fault.
It's like we're looking at the world through a funhouse mirror
I like that analogy.
where everything reflects back on us
Yeah.
in a distorted way.
A distorted view of reality.
But how do we shatter that mirror
Okay.
and see things more objectively?
That's the challenge.
Duke offers a few strategies.
Okay, I'm listening.
One is to simply become aware of this bias,
Right.
to actively challenge our own interpretations of events.
So we're not just accepting things at face value.
Exactly.
Okay.
For example, Think back to a time when you aced a test.
Ooh, I remember those days.
You probably felt like a genius, right?
Of course.
Who hasn't strutted out of an exam room,
Feeling on top of the world.
feeling like they just conquered the world.
Exactly.
But was it all skill?
Okay.
Or did luck play a role?
I see where you're going with this.
Maybe the questions happened to align perfectly with your strengths?
That's possible?
Or you got lucky with a few guesses?
Yeah.
Okay, I see your point.
We don't always give luck enough credit.
It's easy to get caught up in the euphoria of success
It is.
and forget that luck might have played a part.
And on the flip side.
But what about the flip side?
Yeah.
When things go wrong,
Right.
it's even easier to blame external factors.
To find scapegoats.
Exactly.
It's human nature, I guess.
And Duke highlights this with the infamous story
Okay.
of Steve Bartman,
Steve
a
Bartman.
Chicago Cubs fan,
Oh, yeah.
who interfered with a foul ball
I remember that.
during a crucial playoff game.
It was a big moment.
Ah, yes, the incident that became a symbol of the Cubs' long history of bad luck.
Poor Bartman.
Poor Bartman.
He became the villain.
He was practically crucified by the fans.
Yeah, it was pretty harsh.
And it's a perfect example of self-serving bias
Okay.
on a collective scale.
So the fans needed someone to blame.
Fans needed someone to blame for the Cubs' loss,
Right.
so they focused on Bartman,
He was an easy target.
ignoring the fact that a series of other events
Yeah.
also contributed to the defeat.
It's never just one thing, is it?
So how do we,
It's a complex web of events.
as listeners,
Okay.
apply this to our own lives?
That's the key question.
How can we become more objective
Right.
when evaluating our own wins and losses?
How do we see things more clearly?
Duke suggests a few techniques.
Okay.
One is to practice what she calls
What's that?
constructive paranoia.
Constructive paranoia.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Instead of assuming everything will go perfectly,
Right.
take a moment to consider what could go wrong and how you would handle those potential setbacks.
So it's kind of like a pre-mortem for your decisions.
Exactly.
I like that.
By anticipating potential problems,
Yeah.
you're less likely to be blindsided by them
Makes sense.
and more likely to make more rational decisions
When those challenges
when
arise.
those challenges arise.
That's a good strategy.
Another technique
Okay.
is to seek out feedback from others,
Okay.
especially those who aren't afraid
Right.
to challenge your
The
assumptions.
people who will be honest with you.
This reminds me of what we talked about in part 1,
Okay.
the importance of building a decision pod,
Right.
a group of trusted individuals
Yeah.
who provide honest and constructive feedback.
It's like having your own personal board of advisors.
It's like having your own personal board of advisors for your life.
I like that.
Exactly.
It's a good support system.
Surrounding yourself with people
Right.
who can offer different perspectives,
Yeah.
challenge your biases,
Okay.
and help you see things from multiple angles
To get a more well-rounded view.
is invaluable for
Definitely.
becoming a better decision maker.
It's essential.
But it's not enough
Okay.
to simply assemble a group of smart people.
Right.
We need to establish some ground rules,
Okay.
a framework for how to interact and engage with each other
To make sure it's productive.
in a way that promotes truth-seeking.
That's the goal.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Good.
So how do we create a truth-seeking charter,
Okay.
our decision pod?
What are the key elements?
What are the key elements
Yeah.
that would make it effective?
All right, let's break it down.
Duke outlines a few steps
Okay.
based on research.
I'm all ears.
First and foremost,
I pray.
prioritize accuracy over confirmation.
So it's about seeking the truth.
It's about seeking the truth,
All right.
even if it means admitting you were wrong,
Which can be really hard.
which, as we've discussed,
Yeah.
can be really hard for our ego-driven brains to handle.
Our egos don't like to be wrong.
It is.
It's a tough one.
But within the safety of a decision pod,
Okay.
that willingness to acknowledge our fallibility
Right.
becomes a strength, not a weakness.
It's a sign of growth.
It allows for real growth and learning.
Exactly.
The second step
All right.
is to establish clear accountability mechanisms.
So we're holding each other accountable.
This could involve things like regular check-ins,
Okay.
shared goals,
Right.
or even friendly wagers on specific outcomes.
Ooh, I like that.
Having some skin in the game
It raises the stakes.
and definitely sharpen the mind
For sure.
and encourage honesty.
It makes you think twice before you speak.
But it doesn't always have to be about money.
Right.
Maybe we pre-commit to doing a certain task
Okay.
if our prediction is wrong.
Like a consequence.
Or we donate to a charity we disagree with.
That's a good one.
I like that.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is.
The key is to have some form of consequence
Yeah.
that motivates us to be more accurate and objective in our assessments.
We need that extra push sometimes.
And finally,
Okay.
and perhaps most importantly,
This is the big one.
embrace a wide range of perspectives.
Diversity of thought.
So the more diverse our decision pod,
Yeah.
the better.
Absolutely.
When you have people with different backgrounds,
Okay.
experiences, and ways of thinking,
Right.
you're more likely to uncover blind spots,
To see things from different angles.
challenge assumptions,
Okay.
and arrive at more creative and well-rounded solutions.
The more perspectives, the better.
Duke uses a rather sobering example to illustrate this point.
Oh,
The increasing ideological homogeneity of the Supreme Court.
that's a serious issue.
It's a cautionary tale
Okay.
about what can happen
What happens?
when a group becomes too insular,
They get stuck in their own bubble.
too comfortable with its own worldview.
They stop challenging each other.
Over the years,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court justices have become more likely
Okay.
to hire clerks who share their political views,
So they're creating echo chambers.
creating echo chambers within their own chambers.
Wow.
So instead of being exposed to a range of perspectives,
Yeah.
they're surrounded by people
Right.
who reinforce their existing beliefs.
It's a recipe for bias.
I see how that could lead to less nuanced
For sure.
and potentially biased decisions.
When you're not exposed to different viewpoints.
It highlights the dangers of groupthink
Excellent.
and the importance of seeking out diverse viewpoints,
To break out of that bubble.
even and perhaps especially
Essentially.
those that challenge our own.
That's how we grow.
But building a decision pod
Okay.
is only part of the equation.
Right.
We also need to get better
At what?
at communicating
Yeah.
with people who disagree with us,
That's a tough one.
especially in today's increasingly polarized world.
It seems like everyone's at each other's throats.
Seems like we've lost the art of civil discourse.
People have forgotten how to disagree respectfully.
Everyone's retreating to their own corners, shouting their opinions into the void.
It's all about being right, not understanding.
How do we bridge that divide
Okay.
and have more productive conversations
Right.
with people who hold different views?
That's the million-dollar question.
Duke offers a few strategies,
Okay, I'm all ears.
and they're surprisingly simple,
Simple.
yet powerful.
I like simple and powerful.
One is to adopt the yes and approach,
Yes, and.
a technique borrowed from improvisational comedy.
Oh, improv.
Okay, I'm all ears.
That's a fun.
I love improv.
Me too.
How does that work in a real-world conversation?
So instead of immediately shutting down someone's idea
Okay.
or launching into a counter-argument,
Right, which is what we usually do.
you start by acknowledging their point of view.
Okay.
Then something like,
Like what?
yes, I see what you're saying, and?
Yes, I see what you're saying, and.
Yeah.
It's like you're building on their idea
Right.
instead of paring it down.
It's a more collaborative approach.
I can see how that would create a more collaborative
Yeah.
and less adversarial dynamic.
It takes the sting out of disagreement.
Exactly.
It's not about winning or losing.
It shifts the focus from proving the other person wrong
Right.
to finding common ground
To understand each other.
and exploring ideas together.
It's a more productive way to have a conversation.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
What are some other ways we can improve these difficult conversations?
How do we make them less painful?
Duke also stresses the importance
Okay.
of avoiding labels and sweeping generalizations.
Like putting people in boxes.
Instead of saying things like
Right.
all liberals
Right.
or all conservatives.
Yeah, those broad generalizations.
Try to focus on specific issues and
Okay.
perspectives.
So we're not painting everyone with the same brush.
So it's about recognizing the nuances
Yeah.
within those broad categories
Recognizing that people are complex.
and acknowledging that people are much more complex
Right.
than simple labels can capture.
We're all individuals with
Exactly.
our own unique experiences.
And it's about remembering
Okay.
that even people we disagree with
Yeah.
can have valid points and insights.
They might see something we don't.
Engaging with those points,
Right.
even if we don't ultimately agree,
Even if we don't change our minds.
can lead to a deeper understanding
Okay.
and more productive conversations.
It's about learning from each other.
So how do we shift these conversations
Okay.
from unproductive arguments about the past
Dwelling on old grievances.
to more constructive dialogues about the future?
That's a good question.
Duke suggests.
What does she suggest?
Focusing on the future.
Focusing on the future.
It's easy to get caught up
Yes.
in arguments about who was right or wrong,
Yeah.
who's to blame for past mistakes.
Who messed up?
But those conversations
Right.
rarely lead to productive outcomes.
It's just a lot of finger pointing.
It's like rehashing the same old arguments
Yeah.
without making any progress.
We're stuck in the past.
Instead, try to shift the conversation
Okay.
towards what can be done differently going forward.
What are the solutions?
What are the shared goals?
Right.
What are the potential solutions?
How can we move forward together?
So even if we can't agree on everything,
Yeah.
we can at least try to find some common ground
To build bridges.
and work together to create a better future.
That's a much more positive approach.
Exactly.
It's about finding common purpose.
And even when complete agreement is impossible,
Okay.
shifting the focus to future possibilities
Right.
helps to create a more optimistic and solution-oriented mindset.
We can agree on that.
Okay. I'm feeling more hopeful already.
Good.
Now, I remember you mentioned these Mertonian norms of CEDOS
Ah, yes. CEDOS.
a while back.
It's a good framework.
Could you remind me what those are
Sure.
and how they relate to building a truth-seeking culture?
Absolutely.
Of course.
So CEDOS stands for
Okay.
communism.
Hold on, communism
Yeah.
in a guide to better decision-making.
I know, it sounds a bit strange.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't on my high school curriculum.
It's not what you think.
Don't worry.
Okay.
We're not advocating for a political revolution.
No revolutions here.
In this context,
Okay.
communism refers to the open sharing
Right.
of information and ideas within the group.
It's about transparency.
It's about breaking down silos,
Yeah.
making sure everyone has access to the same data,
No secrets.
and avoiding any hoarding of knowledge or insights
You're right.
that could skew the decision-making process.
We want everyone on the same page.
So it's more about communal knowledge
Exactly.
than a communist manifesto.
It's about sharing, not seizing.
That makes a lot more sense.
Good.
How does the CEDOS principle play out
Okay.
in a real-world decision-making group?
Let's say you're part of a team
Okay.
tasked with developing a new product.
Right.
If you adhere to the communism principle,
Okay.
you're ensuring that everyone on the team
Has access to the market research, the
Yeah.
customer feedback,
Right.
the financial projections, and
Right.
any other relevant information.
So there are no hidden agendas
Right.
or secret data stashes
No hoarding information.
that could give one person
Yeah.
or a subgroup an unfair advantage.
It's about fairness and transparency.
Exactly.
Everyone has equal access.
It's about creating transparency
Right.
and fostering a sense of trust
Okay.
and shared purpose
Yeah.
within the group.
That's how you build a strong team.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
Now, what about this universalism thing?
Universalism.
How does that fit in?
So universalism means
Yeah.
applying consistent standards
Right.
to all ideas.
Right.
Regardless of who came up with them.
So it doesn't matter who you are. Your idea is judged on its merit.
It's all about the idea itself.
In a truth-seeking group,
Yeah.
ideas should be judged on their merit,
Not on the person who proposed them.
not on the status.
Or seniority of the person who proposed them.
We're all equal in the pursuit of truth.
So the intern's idea
Yeah,
should be given the same weight
exactly.
as the CEO's idea.
As long as it's a good idea.
As long as it's a good idea.
That's the key.
I love that.
It's a meritocracy of ideas.
It seems like a recipe for innovation.
It is.
When people feel like their ideas will be taken seriously,
Yeah.
regardless of their position within the hierarchy,
It creates a level playing field.
they're more likely to share those ideas freely.
They feel safe to speak up.
This creates a more dynamic and creative environment
For sure.
where the best ideas can emerge
Exactly.
from anywhere within the group.
It's a beautiful thing.
Now on to disinterestedness.
Disinterested.
That one seems like a real challenge,
It can be tough.
given how deeply our own biases
Yes.
and self-interest can influence our decision-making.
We're all biased in some way.
How do we create a truly disinterested approach?
It's a constant battle.
It's a process.
But the first step is acknowledging that those biases exist.
Cool.
We have to be aware of them.
Duke suggests a few strategies
Okay.
for combating these internal conflicts of interest.
Our own internal biases.
One is to practice perspective taking,
Perspective taking.
trying to see the situation
Yeah.
from other people's points of view.
To walk in someone else's shoes.
So stepping outside of our own limited perspective
Right.
and trying to understand
Big.
how others might perceive the situation.
To see it from their side.
Exactly.
It can be eye-opening.
This can help us identify potential blind spots
Yeah.
and challenge our own assumptions.
To question what we think we know.
Another strategy
Okay.
is to pre-commit
Pre-commit.
to certain actions
Okay.
before emotions or biases take over.
To set some ground rules in advance.
This could involve setting clear decision-making criteria in advance.
Like a framework for making choices.
or designating a neutral third party to make the final call in situations where our judgment might be clouded.
So we're taking the emotion out of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's about being proactive.
So before getting caught up in the heat of the moment,
Right.
we create these safeguards,
These safety nets.
these Ulysses contracts,
Ulysses contracts.
that Duke calls them,
I like that term.
to steer us towards more rational and impartial decisions.
To keep us on track.
Exactly.
It's a good strategy.
And the final Scioto's principle
Okay, the last one.
is organized skepticism.
Organized skepticism.
I remember we talked about this earlier
You did.
in the context of communication,
Right.
that it's about approaching conversations
Yeah.
with a healthy dose of curiosity
Okay.
and a willingness to question assumptions,
To not take things at face value.
especially our own.
Especially our own.
How does that translate to decision-making?
So in a decision-making context,
Okay.
organized skepticism means
Yeah.
fostering a culture of critical thinking
Okay.
within the group.
So we're not just blindly accepting everything.
Right.
It's about challenging assumptions,
Asking tough questions.
testing hypotheses,
Okay.
and demanding evidence
We need proof.
before accepting any idea as truth.
We're not just taking things on faith.
It's like creating a mini scientific community
I like that analogy.
where every idea is subjected
To rigorous scrutiny.
to rigorous scrutiny.
It's a tough crowd.
That sounds a lot more productive
It is.
than just blindly accepting
Right.
what everyone else is saying.
We're not sheep.
But how do we do this
Okay.
without creating a culture of negativity
Right.
or cynicism?
We don't want to be overly critical.
It's about finding that sweet spot
Okay.
between blind acceptance
Yeah.
and relentless criticism.
We need balance.
It's about approaching every idea
Okay.
with an open mind,
Right.
willingness to consider all perspectives,
To be open to new ideas.
but also a healthy dose of skepticism.
To not be gullible.
So it's not about tearing down ideas.
Yeah.
It's about testing their strength
Putting them to the test.
and making sure they can withstand scrutiny.
To see if they hold up.
I like that.
It's a good approach.
And I'm guessing this is where we'll pick things up in part 3,
Sounds like a plan.
exploring how to apply all of these principles
Right.
to our own lives
Okay.
and become more skilled decision makers
That's the goal.
in a world full of uncertainty.
The world we live in.
Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into thinking in bets.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets.
The grand finale.
We've covered a lot of grounds,
We have.
from recognizing our inherent biases
Right.
to building a truth-seeking decision pod
Uh-huh.
and adopting those Mertonian norms of Cedos.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But it's important stuff.
We've even learned how to mentally time travel
Yeah.
to make better decisions.
That was a fun one.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
But now I'm wondering how we actually put all these tools and techniques into practice in our everyday lives.
Right. How do we actually use this stuff?
Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most important starting points is awareness.
Okay.
Becoming more aware of our own thinking patterns.
So how we think.
Yeah. How we process information.
Start paying attention to how you react to information,
Okay.
how you form beliefs,
Right. What makes you believe something is true?
and how you justify your decisions.
You being honest with yourself.
It's like becoming a detective of our own minds,
I like that analogy.
looking for clues about our biases and blind spots.
We all have them.
And once you start to see those patterns,
Yeah.
you can start to challenge them.
Okay.
Ask yourself, am I being objective here?
Right.
Am I letting my emotions cloud my judgment?
Are you being rational?
Am I seeking out diverse perspectives?
Am I getting the full picture?
It's about becoming more mindful of our thinking processes
Okay.
and recognizing those moments when we're slipping into autopilot,
Or letting our biases take over.
right? When we're not really thinking critically.
It's easy to fall into those traps.
But how do we break free from those deeply ingrained habits?
Well, Duke emphasizes the importance of a growth mindset,
Okay.
embracing the idea that we can always learn and improve.
Even if it means admitting we were wrong.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's where that truth-seeking decision pod comes in, right?
Exactly.
Surrounding ourselves with people who are willing to challenge us
And help us grow.
and help us grow.
It's about having that support system.
It's about creating a safe space
Mm.
where we can test our beliefs,
Okay.
get honest feedback,
Right.
and refine our thinking.
It's a continuous process.
And it's not just about passively receiving feedback, is it?
No.
We need to be actively seeking out information that challenges our assumptions.
We have to be proactive.
Don't be afraid to experiment with the techniques we've discussed.
Like backcasting and premortems.
Backcasting, premortems,
Yeah.
moving regret forward. See what works for you.
It's about finding what works best for you.
Build your own personalized toolkit for decision-making.
I like that analogy.
It's like we're assembling a toolkit
Right.
filled with strategies and techniques
Okay.
that we can adapt to different situations.
So we're prepared for anything.
Now, one of the most challenging aspects of thinking in bets
Okay.
is learning to embrace uncertainty.
That's a big one.
I can relate to that.
Me too.
We're wired to crave certainty,
Right.
to seek out those simple answers and easy solutions.
We want things to be clear-cut.
But as we've discussed,
Yeah.
life rarely cooperates with that desire for certainty.
It's messy.
The world is messy, unpredictable,
And full of unknowns.
and full of unknowns.
We're full of unknowns.
We can't control everything.
So how do we make peace with that inherent ambiguity?
Well, Duke argues that instead of trying to eliminate uncertainty,
Okay.
we need to learn to manage it,
So manage it.
not eliminate it.
Okay, that sounds like a much more realistic goal.
It is.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, it starts with acknowledging
That we won't always have all the answers.
that's tough,
It is.
that there's no magic formula for making perfect decisions.
If only there was.
It's about accepting that there's always going to be an element of risk,
Right.
a chance that things might not go as planned,
Even when we've done our best to prepare.
even when we've done our best to prepare.
Yep.
And that's where Duke's poker analogy comes in handy again.
Okay.
She reminds us that even the best poker players
Yeah.
make the wrong call sometimes.
They do.
They lose hands.
They experience setbacks,
They experience setbacks.
but they keep playing the game.
So it's not about avoiding losses altogether.
No.
It's about making peace with the fact that losses are inevitable,
They're part of the game.
even for the most skilled players.
Even for the pros.
The key is to focus on making good decisions over the long term,
That's the long game.
to learn from those inevitable mistakes.
And to keep refining your strategy.
It's about playing the odds,
Exactly.
knowing that you won't win every hand,
But trusting that,
but trusting that if you make smart decisions consistently,
yeah,
you'll come out ahead in the end.
that's the goal.
And one of the most powerful takeaways from thinking in bets
Okay.
is that our decisions are not just about outcomes.
Right.
They're also about the process.
It's about how we get there.
So it's not just about whether we win or lose,
Okay.
but about how we play the game,
About the journey.
about the thoughtfulness and intentionality
Right.
we bring to our
Through
decisions.
conscious choices.
Duke encourages us to develop a good decision-making process,
Okay.
one that's based on sound principles,
Right.
rigorous analysis,
We're doing our homework.
and a commitment to truth-seeking.
We're trying to find the truth.
So even if we don't always achieve the desired outcome,
Yeah.
we can still feel good about the fact
Okay.
that we approached the decision with integrity
Right.
and a commitment to making the best possible choice.
We did our best.
And that's a much more empowering and sustainable approach
It is.
than simply chasing outcomes or beating ourselves up over every mistake.
It's about learning and growing.
It allows us to learn and grow,
Yeah.
becoming better decision makers over time,
Regardless of the short-term fluctuations of luck.
regardless of the ups and downs.
We're in it for the long haul.
It's like becoming a master chef,
I like that.
refining our techniques,
Okay.
experimenting with new ingredients,
Great.
and always striving to create the most delicious dish possible.
Even if some experiments don't quite turn out as planned.
Even if some experiments don't quite turn out as
Well,
planned.
it's part of the process.
I like that analogy.
Me too.
It captures the essence of thinking in bets.
It does.
It's about embracing the journey,
Oh.
the continuous process of learning and improvement.
We're always getting better.
As we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to highlight one final thought from Annie Duke that really resonated with me.
Okay, I'm listening.
She says, thinking in bets is not about being sure.
Okay.
It's about becoming less wrong over time.
That's a great quote.
That's such a powerful statement.
It is.
It's a reminder that we're all fallible,
We're human.
that we're going to make mistakes,
It's inevitable.
but that with the right mindset and tools,
Okay.
we can continuously strive to improve our decision-making.
We can always get better.
So embrace the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Challenge your assumptions.
Don't be afraid to question things.
Build your truth-seeking decision pod.
Not your people.
And keep those Mertonian norms of CETOs in mind.
It's a good framework.
And remember,
Okay.
life is a game of probabilities, not certainties.
That's a good way to think about it.
The more we think in bets,
Yeah.
the better we'll become at playing the game.
We're all in this together.
And the more likely we are to achieve our goals.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into thinking in bets.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we have.
I know I have.
And remember,
Yeah.
keep thinking in bets.
Keep those bets coming.